Hi everyone, my name is Winnie and I'm here to give the HTML, CSS and JavaScript workshop for Open Dev. This is a recorded version of the workshop we held on Wednesday and we just forgot to press record, so I'll be going through the same content as that day. We hope to cater for absolute beginners, but if there's any issues you have, just let me or the team know. Cool. And so here are the quick links that we have. This link contains all the slides we're going through today and some helpful exercises that kind of drive home the content we're going through. Cool, but let's get started then with HTML. What is HTML? Well, it stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's the kind of thing that we use to structure a web page and what appears on the screen. As you can see on the presentation on the left, there's the angle brackets and bits and pieces here and there, and this all comes together to create the thing here. So it creates a little page, and you can see how bits of it corresponds. There's a hello world here and a hello world here. Cool. And it's a bit plain at the moment, but HTML is usually used as like a bare bones, and we get to style it up a bit later. So, as I said, you can look at HTML on the web page because it makes all the things that occur on a web page. And let's look at that through an example. So let's go to UNSW maybe, their website, and kind of see if we can find it. The first way that you can find it is by going to your keyboard and clicking Control-U or Command-U on the MacBook. And so if I zoom in here, you can see there's a bit of HTML written out and bits and pieces here and there. And this is a bit less interactive. The most common way to find this, what we call source code, is right-clicking on the page and clicking the button Inspect. Now you get this kind of place where you can inspect the elements and kind of hover over bits of the code to see which bit corresponds to which part of the screen. And so you can tell that everything here is affected by this because you could even play around with it kind of locally. So if I just do Control F or Command F to search for something, let's search for this title. And this title, it says Explore Our Powerhouse. Oh, so it's already coming up now. And if we see it, it's in two places. And you can see that it's linking to that bit. And even if we change it to something like CSESoc is cool, we should see that change. So it's really easy to kind of play around with the HTML underlying websites. So let's keep moving on and kind of understand the HTML a bit more and kind of understand how its syntax kind of works. So you can think of HTML as kind of a language of tags. And so what this means is it's there's like angle brackets and then the tag thing that we are wanting to make it, and then a closing angle bracket, and it comes in pairs and they act like big brackets surrounding the content that's over here. And so these are the tags, and in this one, it's a H1 tag. And just by knowing this, H1 is like a short version to say heading 1. And so it's the first type of heading, and it's conventionally known as like the biggest heading. And so you can probably guess there's H2, 3, and so on to kind of indicate like subheadings and all that kind of stuff. Cool. And there are so many other tags, but we'll explore them really soon. And we'll probably explore them in this example that we might look at, where we saw this just before. And let's try and recreate it with what we know a bit more on HTML now. So I'm just going to open up my code editor And I use VS Code to code, and I have a new folder opened up here. And if you ever want to know how to like set anything stuff up locally, just let us know. And so I'm gonna make a new file. Let's just say HTML demo, demo, and then .html to get the file. And then let's begin writing away. So there's a little bit of a structure that is followed when you're writing HTML files. The first kind of line on the file is something called the doc type. So I have a extension. So if I went here and searched for like HTML extensions and all that, I get this pop, like I can download it, and now I get this pop up, and if I click on it, it kind of autofills for me. So I have this as my first line, and this is mostly used in I think all HTML at the very beginning, because for old browsers, they just needed that to identify it was the HTML page, and we want to be compatible to that just in case. Cool. And then we're writing HTML, so we make a HTML tag to surround everything in. And then the HTML is kind of split into two parts. We call it the head, and also another part called the body. And so the head, oh, just before I get into that, in coding as well, there's these things called comments, and these comments are like bits of like proper English you write out to explain the code, and it's not executed. So to do that, you do a angle bracket, exclamation mark, and 2 dashes. Mine just auto completed the rest, but you would do this to indicate the end of your comment. And so back to what the head section is. The head section is actually controlling things not on the screen. It kind of sets the metadata. And what that means is it sets the kind of things that not go on the screen, but the things surrounding the site still. And so, for example, it affects like the web page name. It also can affect, if you want, if you see up in the very top corner of these two sites, there's like a little icon on the tabs. It affects what image that is. And also it can affect like when you share a link to someone on like a messaging app and there's a little picture preview, it also can affect that picture preview as well. Cool. But we won't look at doing too much of that. We'll look at more of the body, which is the main things that go on the screen. And so let's quickly look back. We want to firstly create a big title called Hello World. So we saw before of the tag for headings, which is H1. So if I go into the body and I type H1, and yeah, I'm just lucky I have a good extension that auto completes the ending tag. So the first one is Hello World. Cool. And so how do we view this? And so that we can keep going and coding away as we go. Well, one way I like to do it is right-clicking this and clicking Reveal in Explorer. Then I go to my like browser and let me open up the Explorer again and click here. Oh, I didn't open up the Explorer again, and drag and drop it and enter. There we go. So that opens up. Another way you could do it is download an extension called Live Server, and then you can just right click and click Open with Live Server. Both work. Cool. So we've now done that big heading Hello World. Now we want to do the next bit, the little kind of plain text even. So there are many tags, as we kind of mentioned, that exist. So we have H1 and we have H2 and so on. There's another one called the P tag, which I believe stands for paragraph tag. And this should give us like the normal plain text. And so I think in our example, it was, this is what plain HTML looks like without CSS styling. Cool. So I've just saved my file. Let me open up to my page and refresh. There we go. And this is what it looks like. And this is what we expect. Cool. Now, another tag that's exciting is the listing tag. So here we have a list, and let's recreate that list. So it's underneath the paragraph. So to create a list, or I guess to create a list, you use the tag UL. And so now we have a kind of list kind of section, and UL stands for unordered list. If you search up and want to do an ordered list, that's probably a different tag, but an unordered list is like with dot points, like the bullet points, and the ordered list is like, I guess, like ordered 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of list. So let's now add things to the list. So for the list, we want a list element, so something for each dot point. And so let's make a list element and say this is a list item 1, and we can copy and paste that to do list item 2 and list item 3. Cool. And so this should form the list, and this should, this should form the list, and this should form all the things inside the list. Now let's see if that works. I'll refresh. Awesome. So now we have the lists that we want. Now let's look at this bottom bit. This is, I guess, somewhere you put input in. And so you can guess that it's an input tag, but it's a little bit different because I guess currently we've seen that they occur in pairs. This and then this with a slash, that's the word. And an input tag, though, does not have a pair. It just is a angled bracket kind of section. So what this looks like is input, and yeah, and so that's what it looks like. But it's a little bit of a different formatting. But the input is kind of really a really vague tag. So if I search up input here, input HTML, you can kind of see that it can take in a few other things within itself. So there's these things and then these things, and so they're really similar, right? They're actually what we call attributes. So they have a type attribute and a value attribute, and so this type is what we kind of call a kind of key, and then this is kind of the value for the key or identifier. So we can see that there's different input types. So we can get like a checkbox or a button and all that, because that's a type of input, right? So let's kind of show the checkbox type. And let's see what that kind of looks like. Cool, we have a little checkbox. You can tick it, untick it, and so on. But that's not what we're looking for in here. And if you do a bit more digging, you'll find out that it's actually just of type text. So this ensures that it's like a place where you can write text in for input. There's, I think, another thing called numeric or something, and that ensures that you can only write just numbers and into the input bar. And so let's see what that looks like. Perfect. And can we type anything? Nice, we can. Awesome. Cool. There are quite a few other tags that are like this. They don't occur in like the pair that we've seen previously. One important one is called the image tag. I think there is an actual tag called image, but we usually use this tag. And so you can kind of see how they both don't really need a thing enclosing around it because yeah, it doesn't seem like you need to enclose some kind of content. So in this image tag, we want to, let's say, upload an image onto our site, and we can do that by specifying where that image is stored. So we would use the attribute of source, and then give the link to where the image is stored. So if we had another file in this folder and it was the image, we could just give the file name and write it here. But we can also use the internet to provide images. And so one thing I really like are Crocs. So let's get an image of Crocs. Oh, it took me to a website I was previously looking at. That's okay. You can also look at it on Google Images as well. But if you right click on a photo, oh, pop-ups, you can probably click this option called copy image address. So I've copied it and let me paste it in. Okay, let's see if that works actually. But yeah, hopefully that works. Oh, nice. And so it has appeared here now. So, so that's a way that you can also add images in. And I think a good thing whenever you add an image in is to also fill in the alt tag. So I'm going to make this into a new line. Nice. So this will be alt attribute. And the alt attribute kind of explains when the image fails to load. And so what will happen is a piece of text that is specified here will appear instead. So let's kind of describe it. So this is, let's say, a blue Crocs, and it's the shoe. Cool. And so let's just pretend we have the wrong URL or something. And so this should accidentally disappear. Oh, I think it's still recognizing the product. So if I even just get rid of the, or I will still just make a random URL. So it would do that. Oh, I think it's because the Crocs website is giving me that URL. But if there was some issue with the image as well, so let's say we didn't even put a link to it, it would just show like this. And this is quite important to have this alt or alternative text because people with accessibility kind of need it when they are using screen readers. So they're like these devices that read the screen and describe what the screen looks like for people who might not be able to see it. And so if you look at something called the Web Accessibility Guidelines, here they have a list of many things you can add to your web page to make sure that it kind of is really suitable and welcoming to people with accessibility needs. And love talking about that stuff. Let me know if you're ever interested in it. Cool. Anyway, so let's just get rid of this image for now. And yeah, so that was the image tag. And that kind of reminds me, if you just want to even link a normal link or URL, not a whole image, that's the A tag. And you'll need to use an attribute too to tell you what link. So href is the attribute's name. And let me give a random link. Let's link this again. So I've linked it here. And so this is the place I want to link something to. But maybe I want to link like a button or a bit of text, and I'll say that bit of text says click here. Save it and refresh. This should take me to that website. And looks like it does. Cool. So the A tag is also a helpful tag, I guess, to just link away. And let's go back to this actually. So the last thing that is pretty crucial for this page to be exactly the same is the button. And so let's get rid of this link and let's put in a button instead. So it's the button tag, and I think the button was just called a button. And so let's look now. Cool, button. So this looks like almost actually, this is a bit of a bigger white space, and that's really easy to do. You just put a little, another tag called break. Oh, break. And so this should add some space. Perfect. And some things that might be useful, two tags that might be useful as well, is one tag is called span. And so what this tag does is make sure that the things within it are organized nicely, I guess, in line. So we saw that the input thing and the button are like in one line. And so span kind of groups the things in the same line together, just to make it a bit tidier. And then there's something as well called a div. And so this can group even more things together. Maybe it could group the list item underneath as well. But it kind of, instead of grouping stuff within one line, it groups stuff into blocks. And so things in blocks can be easily managed. Awesome. But that's pretty much the page that we have made. Cool. Let's keep going to look at it all a bit more. So to add a bit more terminology, actually, let's say that we have the list element that we saw before, and we know that it's indented or at least kind of nested or a part of the unordered list element. So the list element is part of the unordered list one. And so this is called a parent element, and the things inside are its children. And these are all sibling elements to each other. So just a bit of terminology. And I think it is important that we have the different tags to be used for their actual purposes. So for example, let's say a heading tag is used for an actual heading, and instead of like a P tag or paragraph tag, just made a bigger font size and all that, is not used as a heading instead, and use a actual heading tag. And stuff like how we put stuff or space stuff around in a page, that we don't just use divs and all that everywhere. We can use other stuff that are more useful. And yeah, there are so many tags that exist. If I show you, if you just search up like HTML tags even, Yeah, I think this was the one I was looking at before, but it just has so many. So whichever you need, you can just Google search it. So as long as you know how to put them into an HTML, let's say HTML file, then everything else is available to you. I can't even remember all of them off the top of my head, and you don't need to because you can search them up. Awesome. And well, I guess a 5-minute break, but we'll jump into CSS next.